Hi, and welcome to another episode of Kuntarkis. My name is Michael Yon, and this episode is The Ghost of the Alkimos. So, Kuntarkis, what is this, The Ghost of the Alkimos?
Well, Michael, the best way to actually, I suppose, present this is just to read what I wrote over 31 years ago. So what I'll do is I'll actually start exactly as I wrote it, and from that point, the ghost himself, Henry John Bishop, will also communicate, and then I'll go back to myself. But I'll just start off like this. This is a true story about a man who was murdered on a ship in 1962 called the Alkimos. In the 1990s, back then, I viewed a television program called The Extraordinary, all about strange happenings. This one program interests me about a haunted ship that had run aground in Western Australia. Apparently, there was a ghost spirit who made the most strangest sounds and even caused tremendous fear in those who came aboard to investigate if the ship was haunted or someone's overrated imagination. This is what I'm about. I have experienced dozens of hauntings, even talked with the spirits, the ghosts, who were doing some really silly things to upset the people living in that particular house. It may sound strange to many people, but I enjoy helping those spirits who are trapped between our world, being third dimensional, and the fourth vibration, which is spirit world. That is the vibration all humans enter when they perish by leaving their human body for whatever the circumstances are. So I decided to write to a television station, which was Channel 7 in Sydney. The information that I received from that particular spirit who have been caught between the two vibrational worlds. So the following is what I sent to Channel 7. I never received anything back, so I just let it go and I moved on with life. Now many years passed, and I meant many. Then for some reason I decided to install Messenger on my mobile, which was towards the end of August 2021. In early September 2021, a man by the name of Cole Wilson from New South Wales wrote to me on Messenger asking me if I was the medium who wrote an article on the ghost of the Alkimos. I wrote back saying, I am sorry, I am not sure what you are asking me. He wrote back saying, are you the Roman Harambura that told a story about a ghost back in the 1990s? I informed him that I have in the past wrote many stories on ghosts and spirits and asked him if he could give me a little bit more information. He photocopied 3 pages and sent them to me, which showed me that was my story, which I sent to Channel 7 in the 1990s. It instantly revealed a buried memory. In moments, the fullness of it came before me, and I told Cole, yes, that was me. What intrigued me was how it all fell into place. My letter that I sent to Channel 7 in Sydney was passed on to a man called Jack Wong Soo, who did lots of research on the ship and the crew. He is the writer of that book, as well as a man called Barry Soo, and I must give them both credit in doing such an amazing job. I believe it was published in 2001. So what you're about to read, is what I discovered from this ghost spirit back in the 1990s. Called The Stranded Ghost of the Alkimos. My name is Henry John Bishop, and I was born in Leicester, England, on October the 23rd, 1914. I am the youngest of 3 children, the other 2 being my brother and my sister. At the time of my unfortunate death, I was 48 years of age, being 1962. My ultimate death by my lack of precaution and expediency. I was a smuggler for many years and travelled the oceans all over the world many times with my goods. I used an alias, but for reasons at this time I cannot reveal it. At 17, I decided to leave home and travel to Asia, and it was there that I involved myself with the wrong type of people. So began my career as a smuggler. Being a loner most of my life, it was easy for me to smuggle artifacts out of their country of origin, and I continued this line of work right up until my death. I also realized early on that my style of life would be the death of me. Once when I was in Asia, a fortune teller told me that I would die young, never having achieved my ambition of wealth and comfort. Naturally, I laughed. I have always believed in the afterlife and in those who can tap into the future. When my family discovered my exploits, I was banished for bringing disgrace to my family name. I never saw them again, and I travelled mainly through the Orient, selling my merchandise or collecting items for sale. The triads, who I believed to be the Chinese mafia, came after me when they found out that I had been smuggling national treasures and antiques out of their country. They put a price on my head. The police were also on my trail, but I was smart enough to outsmart them. I was hoping to retire in Australia, and it was on that final, fatal journey that I came to grief. In my possession was a collection of small, precious jade statues. Those, imminent sale, I believed, would make me financially secure for the rest of my life. In a way, I am glad I didn't make it. At least I don't have to be looking over my shoulder. It was on this voyage to Australia that I was to sell my jade statues to a big businessman, and it would prove to be my undoing. One night on the ship we were drinking, and in my drunken stupor I blabbed about my cargo and business. The others wanted a share of my profit, but when I refused, I was murdered. I was stabbed in the stomach and had my throat slit. I was then dumped overboard to a watery grave. My bones are scattered all over the ocean floor. I actually had a fear of water, as I could not swim. In the back of my mind, I always knew that the ocean would claim me. I have been in pain for a very long time, but with time I began to understand my dilemma. That is, I was dead, without even realizing that I was dead. I had been trying to get people to listen to me, but their own fears created the situations they experienced, for which I was later blamed. I do not want to harm anyone. I have tried not to harm anyone. All my efforts were to get people to listen to me. Unfortunately, certain people have been exploiting these misunderstandings and have added to the confusion and the fear. I am a pleasant person and would never hurt another. I found it difficult to communicate with people who came to the wreck after my death because my throat had been split so deep it severed my vocal cords and the muscles attached to my tongue, therefore preventing adequate communication. That is why they heard me groaning. I stayed on the ship because of my fear of water. My body was gone, but as I had no idea I was dead, my spirit remained in the only place it felt safe. But my inner voice is open to spirit, so I can communicate on a different level. I will be going through the light shortly and will no longer exist on the wreck, as I have now said what I have to say. Once I have gone through the light, I will be out of the astral world. I now understand that I will be moving on to higher dimensions beyond the astral plane. Okay, now we go into this. The foregoing is taken from a letter addressed to a Sydney TV station after screening of an episode of The Extraordinary about Australia's leading ghost story during the mid-1990s. The weird story of the wrecked Alkimos was prominently featured in that documentary. The TV station in turn readdressed the letter to Jack Wong Soo, and it is reproduced here for the readers. Now, please remember what I wrote back in the 1990s, which is around 31 years ago. So this is what I actually wrote. My name is Roman Harumbura, and I live in Brisbane. Most Tuesday nights, I get to watch your program, which I find very interesting. In particular, last night's program, May the 17th, caught my attention, namely your story on the ghost of the shipwreck lying off the coast of Western Australia. I am a practicing channel and for what is better known as a medium. It must be pointed out that each one of us has the ability of contacting others beyond the earth plane. However, some of us have developed this skill further than the average person. While watching your story on the shipwreck, I found that I was tuning in and the information regarding the ghost was coming through. I put it aside, but later that night, when it was time to go to bed, I found that I was restless and could not sleep. At this point, I decided to do a meditation, and it was during this meditation that the information I present here came through. I am not claiming that this information is 100% correct, as quite often what an entity is trying to communicate can be misunderstood by mediums. However, I am confident that this information is as close to accurate as possible. I trust that the following will answer many questions regarding our misunderstood friend, Henry John Bishop, who requests that his story be told. I must also point out that I am not looking for recognition of any sort, as a true medium will not exploit his skills for self-glorification, but only to clarify any misunderstanding and misconceptions created by the fear of the unknown. Well, naturally, I just said yours sincerely, signed Roman Harumbura, addressed to the Extraordinary, Post Office Box 462, Newport Beach, Sydney. Now, the writer of this book, Jack Wong Soo, stated, during February 2001, I wrote Roman Harumbura at the only address I had, 2017 Barden, Queensland, inquiring as to any further contact he may have had with the spirit of Henry Bishop. The letter was returned endorsed unknown at this address. So that was that. Now what's interesting is, since I put this up now on my website, I've also now had further connection with our Mr. Friend ghost called Henry John Bishop. On the night that I read what I have written around 31 years ago, which was on the 23rd of September 2021, I experienced something very special to me. I connected with the ghost being truly the spirit of Henry Bishop. I was walking on a beautiful sandy beach with lots of sunshine, with light winds. As I walked, I looked down at my feet. They were bare, no shoes, and felt the warm sand between my toes. Suddenly, I heard a voice. As I looked up, I was quite amazed. It was Henry Bishop, sitting on the sand with his arms wrapped around his legs. He called out to me with a gentle smile, saying, "I was wondering when you would turn up. Sit by me." As I sat down, I folded my legs, saying to Henry, "You look so much happier than when I saw you last." He didn't look at me, but kept his eyes out to sea. As he answered, "When I was within the astral plane, I couldn't speak nor communicate with anyone until I met you. You helped me go beyond my continuous pain and helped me to let go of the past and helped me to talk. I have had a very interesting physical life, but also a spirit life. I have discovered that I am no longer in the astral plane. I believe I went through the light that you spoke of, but now realize I am in a much better place in spirit world that you explained to me also. I no longer hold any malice to my murderers. What I am wanting to ask you, if I may, what can I do to help myself go further, or anything that would help me move on?" As I looked at Henry, I replied to him, "First, have some fun. You can do whatever you wish within that spirit world. He asked me, like what? I answered, your thinking is your magic. Learn to put your thoughts on whatever you wish and do it many times over. Believing is the most important part. He answered me, I have always wondered what happened to the jade statues. Who ended up with them? I was told they're worth at least $5 million US. I replied to him, that was back then. I was curious myself and found out that an American man purchased them from someone in Australia for over 20 million Australian dollars about 17 years ago. Henry looked at me a little shocked, then said, oh well, life turns out whatever you put into it. Just a little disappointing. Then I will take your directions and put my thoughts into a better place. What was so fascinating, we sat there, we seemed for a long, long time, just looking out to sea. Not another word was said. He turned to me, then putting out his hand. I raised my hand and shaked in friendship for several seconds, watching the peaceful smile on his face. Our ghost has become a real spirit. He has found his blissful place of complete peace, and I left him sitting on the beach looking out to the sunset. I awoke with a smile, saying to myself, that was one of the most beautiful dream experiences I have ever had. Then I pulled a blanket over me and went into a deep sleep, knowing the real truth of my friend Henry John Bishop and his adventures at sea. Kuntarkis.
Wow, Kuntarkis, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. And that story spans over 30 years.
Yeah. It's incredible, mate, how it came back. I mean, you got to ask. I originally had that up on my old website, and I lost the original letter. And when I say lost, it was some not very nice person that was being a little vindictive, ripped up a lot of my papers. And that letter, the original letter that I wrote by hand and typed out on a typing machine, was ripped up and thrown out. That's my best guess. What's interesting is 31 years on, a man from New South Wales called Cole Wilson befriended me on Messenger and asked me those questions. And he said he bought the book. I said, what book? He said he bought the book called The Alkimos. I said, well, what's that got to do with me? And then he explained it and he sent me 3 pages and I saw what I wrote in the book. The guy, Jack Wong Soo, he actually put exactly how my letter was written into his book. Very interesting book to read about shipwrecks. It really is, and how it all came about. And the most interesting factor, Michael, is about the ship called the Alkimos. I think it weighed about 677 tons or something like that. I'm not sure. 1,000 tons. I'm not sure. But it was quite a large ship in that time. It was built in America, but it changed hands so many times. So I found it very interesting reading the history of the book. And the people that killed him, they were actually Asian ship crew, because they wanted him to tell them where he had his jade statues, because they wanted to sell them and make all that money. So he literally blabbed his mouth, he got killed, dumped over, and it was very sad indeed.
It is a thing, isn't it, when the way that you die physically can affect how the spirit is as a ghost. Before going through the light, you can suffer whatever you suffered when you died.
Oh, tremendously, Michael, tremendously. Yeah, people don't realise. And the sad part is it carries through because it's lodged within your cellular structure, every memory of every lifetime. And all those negative things build up, and that's why it literally transforms us mostly into a lot of negative experiences in every lifetime to come, until we grow enough to realize that reincarnation is a reality. It's the real thing. It's not fantasy. that, people seem to make out and believe that the old Bible that, when you die, you go into the ground for 1,000 years until this great God comes down and resurrects you. That is so much baloney I've never heard in my life. You got to be, I won't say it, but you got to be pretty crazy to believe that that's possible. If people knew the truth, the real truth about how the Bible was written and rewritten, they would actually be horrified or just forget they heard that and keep going on with what they are connected to because of fear of change. And what's going to really happen soon, Michael, is about the Vatican, because that's where it is. The original Bible, the original, is actually within the Vatican walls in their deep underground chamber. And that will bring us into the next story, which you're about to introduce. Before we go, do you want to ask any questions at all about this?
Yeah, no, I had a basic question about what is it like as it relates to what you could call time distortion when it comes to a person who's no longer physical, they're in the astral world, they're suffering just the way Henry did. What's it like when it comes to time, like the sun rising, the sun setting, needing to eat or not needing to eat or go to the toilet, or all those normal physical things? They change a lot, don't they?
Yeah, they do, because it depends all on the level of your understanding and your self-awareness. And that's not with your physical body, that's also with your spirit body. If you are really limited as a physical person in your understanding of anything beyond your normal, say, third dimensional level thinking, then you pass on that same level of understanding onto your spirit. So when it comes out at night, which it does to every single human on this planet, and if anybody says that's not true, they have no idea what they're talking about. But they go out with those same limitations into spirit world or into the astral world. And that's the really sad part, because they're not growing. They're not allowing themselves to grow because the human that owns the body, that is connected with the spirit, hasn't got the awareness to grow beyond what they are, because they're limited in their knowledge. All they've got is third dimensional knowledge. It's conditional knowledge based on fear. But if you start growing through your own thought consciousness, that's when you really start to see the truth of everything. And I mean everything.
So would Henry, when he was, his having trouble with his throat and etc., would he also see like daytime and nighttime and daytime and nighttime, or was it all just caught like in an hour of his nighttime existence?
Okay. Again, he was reliving his experiences when I came across him.
His experiences as in when he had died?
Yes.
Yeah.
Reliving them over and 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 over again, probably several thousand times in the time over the 31 years, right? That's because of his level of understanding. But he could not speak words. Even in spirit, he couldn't speak words, because he knew that his throat was severed so deep, it went through his vocal cords. So all he could do was groan. And that's what all these people, these clairvoyants and mediums and ministers, when they came to the ship to try and banish the ghost when it was wedged up on the sand and the rocks, he was groaning, such a horrible groan. And he literally learnt how to take his groans into the human world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he was just trying to communicate, but he couldn't talk. And when I came across him and he was groaning at me and he had this most vicious look on his face of desperation, I looked at him and I said, wait. I said, please wait. I said, listen to my words before you make any more sounds. Your throat had been severed. And naturally, being a ghost, you're playing on the same energy when your throat was severed. So after explaining all that to him, he looked at me and he tried to talk, but he couldn't. So I came to him and I said, may I put my hand around your throat? And he sort of stood back, groaning a little, and then he sort of grabbed my hand and he put it there himself. And as he put it there, he said he felt this burning sensation. Well, that was instant healing. And I was removing his fear. And I said, your throat is perfect because you are a spirit. You're no longer in your body that had the throat severed. You are a spirit. You can't sever the spirit's throat. And I got to speak to him about that, and he started to understand, and he came out with the first word, which was, "Ow!" That's what he said to me, and that's help. Help me, basically. And I did. And over a little period of time, he understood the truth, and he healed. And you could see this beautiful light shining all around his throat. And he suddenly looked at me, and he said, "Thank you." And that was it. He started communicating. He told me the whole story. Oh, not the whole story of his life, but I suppose the most meaningful parts that he wanted people to understand. And maybe he wanted his family, but his family would be all dead. Like not his brothers and his sister probably, but probably his family, like his father and mother, they may be passed from this world also. I think he'd like them to know that what happened to him, because he loved his family, but they banished him. Yeah, so that's that. Oh, one other thing about every level of thinking in every single spirit that leaves the body is different. Some will see daytime, some will see nighttime, some will see grey. Everything will be grey every single moment while they're in spirit world until they grow beyond it and step up through different levels of consciousness within the spirit world.
So yeah, that's what I was saying. I was asking with Henry, was he kind of stuck in an eternal nighttime?
Yes, he was for a period of time. Yes, yeah, it was a strange. I saw exactly what he was seeing, and it was like color was trying to break through. There must have been red on the ship. There had to be some sort of red on the ship originally, or something like that. Because when I saw it, I saw this unusual flaming of red around parts of the ship. So it must have been. But the way his thinking was more grey and black. The ship was black and the sky was grey. That's how you got to look at it. That could differentiate the different colour coordination. But it was like a fraction in time, Michael. Very hard, because I'm seeing something that no longer exists. Only in fragments, which are in the pool of life. As I explained in my first volume and second volume, you know, how I gathered all those fragments. I can still gather those fragments now with Henry Bishop, and I could put him into my book, and I could put reality into it, because that's exactly what those fragments are. And you just got to put the fragments together. And I've actually not learnt, but very close. I'm learning how to do that really well.
This concludes another episode of Kuntarkis. If you'd like to know more about Kuntarkis, he has a website, etcconsciousness.com. Also, we have a Facebook page for Kuntarkis. And on the website, you can find out more about his books. And also, if you'd like to contact us for any reason, including a consultation with Kuntarkis, then simply email kuntarkis@gmail.com. That's it for now. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Michael Yon, and stay tuned for more.